Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So welcome to another edition of Face to Face. It's a beautiful cold morning still here in March and just outside of Toronto. And our guest with us today is somebody I know you're going to enjoy. She's full of life, full of passion. Grace, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, David.
So Grace Attard lives in Oakville. She's been working with, inspiring is a better word, I think. I was going to say working, but she's been inspiring leaders and business folk and entrepreneurs for quite a few years. She was a creator of eSpot, and she's the new chair of Tech. And I'm going to let her she's going to tell us a little bit more about that. She hosts a daily blog called The Daily Grace, which we're also going to get into. And again, Grace, thanks for joining us. So your bio says full out compassion, full out competence, full out courage. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh, I think it's years in the making, David. I think, I grew up Asian background, grew up in Hong Kong, and if you know anything about the Asian culture, I lived in an environment where I was born with a plan already. I was born to follow a certain pathway, and not until my mid-30s did I realize that there were lots of options outside of this pathway that was set out for me when I was younger. So I spent a lot of my earlier years, and certainly not complaining about any of it, but in an environment where I didn't show a lot of my compassion. I didn't need to be very courageous. I don't think.
Were you just sort of like following the herd, or?
Yeah. You're supposed to be either a doctor, an accountant, or a lawyer. Right. Coming out of school, and all my parents' kids went, abroad to boarding school from Hong Kong. So, we had our paths set out for us, and had many structured opportunities within that path, but I didn't know that I had as much creativity and as much courage and as much compassion as I did until, not until about 10 or 15 years ago.
Wow.
So my life has been quite the whirlwind for the last 10 or 15 years.
So Grace, so you say you didn't know you had this till about 15 years ago. Does that mean that it was already there? That it was something that was developing, while you were becoming a doctor, an accountant, or a lawyer, and then you just discovered it, or is it something that you've been kind of working on all along?
No, I actually think the former. I think I just discovered it. It was, it's that feeling you have when you are somewhere and it's full of life and you still feel empty in the middle. I think for me, it's the feeling of being in a crowd and feeling lonely. Right. I was in many situations where I just didn't feel like I belonged there. And not until I started my own business, and not until I began sort of coaching and consulting and working with people from a deeper level, and also from an what's possible level, did I realize what can be created from that space. So that's kind of where my journey began, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. So shocking for me and fascinating in terms of the impact that it's been able to make on me and for others that I've been working with.
What do you learn from working with so many business leaders? This is a huge question. Obviously, the list is probably long and endless, but what are some of the things that bubble to the surface right away when I say, so what do CEOs teach you? Not so much what you teach them, but what are you taking away from those kinds of conversations?
Oh, that CEOs are human.
Right.
We are so woven from the same cloth, regardless of title and regardless of rank. There is struggle and there is pain. There's a common way of being that we all have, and regardless of the leadership title or position that we have, there are still struggles with self-confidence, with belongingness, with rejection, with shame, with being vulnerable, with finding courage. All of those things are common for all of us. And so to answer your question, I think CEOs and business leaders are no different. I think the expectation is even higher for them. So being able to provide a safe space for conversation and to push through some of those limiting beliefs and tough navel-gazing self-conversations,
Right.
is a real gift to be able to do that work. So I feel very privileged.
I remember a friend of mine who I would call pretty wealthy said, when he first made his money some 35 or 40 years ago, it was amazing how smart he became. So
how true.
Yeah, so all of a sudden all these people are knocking on his door. Hey, can we get together? What did you do? What did you learn? And so on. And I guess his point is that, hey, you know what? A lot of luck came into this as well. I kind of know what I'm doing, and I was well schooled and so on. But you know what? Some things fell into place here that I really had nothing to do with. And I wonder sometimes when you mention, that level of expectation that we put on people in leadership roles or CEOs or people who write books and so on. I wonder if they're kind of thrown into it in a way that they're not prepared for. They don't really have the goods to be making $10 million a year, but all of a sudden they are.
Well, it's funny, you hear a lot about mindset and skill set, and I think oftentimes, entrepreneurs or whoever has a gift, whether they're a shoemaker or a baker or a cupcake maker, they have this phenomenal skill, and that's where their passion lies. Yet, in order to lead an organization and to lead a business, a whole pile of other skills need to be built. So, I understand what your friend's saying. I got smart over time. Well, I think that's just part of the learning. I also, going back to your question around, what have I learned from CEOs? I have learned that there is a common underlying characteristics, I guess, that I see in the most successful entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And I would say their way of giving and serving is so apparent to me. And, oftentimes, certainly when I was younger, I heard a lot about, there were lots of myths or beliefs around people who got rich were crooks, or, can't trust those guys who make lots of money. And, and in my experience, the individuals that have made financial success and abundance in their lives and in love and family, they are people who are the best givers. So,
Grace, are they also would you say they're also the best CEOs?
Yes, because they have built the team around them, because they've known what they're phenomenal at, and they focus on that, and they delegate the areas that are needed, but not their skill set.
Right. So these people are not superheroes. They understand. There's a and I would imagine this is kind of what you help them with. I would think. I mean, on some levels, you call yourself a coach, but frankly, I think you're probably a bartender. You're a hairdresser. You're a psychiatrist, right? You're somebody that actually builds a certain amount of trust with these folks, and you commiserate, you listen, and I would think that's a big part of your job, building trust. And so when you say that these people delegate this, to me that reeks of self-awareness, right? you've got to know yourself, and in order to know yourself, you got to be able to talk honestly. And I would imagine, I mean, maybe that's where you came up with the name for your blog, The Daily Grace.
You've got to find a little piece of grace in each day.
That's right. Yeah.
And sometimes, grace with yourself. I think, no, I appreciate you saying that. I think perhaps another area alongside of building trust is sort of the concept of being an Imagineer with my clients. You know, working with them and seeing what else is possible. Let's imagine what could happen here. And I think back to the TED Talk that you did, David, around wonder. You know,
right.
I wonder what would happen if.
Yes.
And just having that sort of mindset around being curious and looking at what's possible, because our world, unfortunately, gives us lots of opportunities to see what's not possible.
Yeah.
And so I hope and I believe that I do love the area of working and creating about and redefining what's possible for my clients.
I want to go back to we'll hop around here a little bit, but you talked about your life kind of being you were born with a plan, and and obviously not your plan. Parents, family, culture, you know, school teachers, etc. Your friends, even. I would imagine it becomes very ideological. I would imagine, in some respects, it's cultural, but it goes even deeper. If that makes any sense, you're not a person if you don't do X, Y, or Z. How you discovered it? Was it an epiphantic kind of moment? Was it a spiritual mountaintop experience? Or was it just gradually over time, your reading, your conversations, as you developed and matured, you said, holy smokes, this is not right. This isn't me. The world is full of opportunity here.
Sure, it happened over time. And I think the beginning of that time was probably pretty unconscious for me. I remember when I was 15, I went with a girlfriend in Hong Kong to a fortune teller.
Okay.
And it's a Chinese fortune teller who reads your hands and reads your face. And the only thing I remember this fortune teller telling me, she looked at my face and she says, "Oh, you will work very hard until you're 35, and then you won't ever have to work again." And I thought, that's interesting. And so, it's the only thing I remember from that conversation growing up. And I remember on my 35th birthday thinking all the crazy things, right? Like, somebody's going to die. And
I see, yes. Not the positive things. Yeah.
Not the positive parts. And I thought, what's going to happen this year? Yeah. And so what ended up happening is I started my own business. I became an entrepreneur, and I began doing work that I loved, and that work didn't feel like the traditional sense of work. So was there a moment? Maybe that was the moment. I have since been so privileged and honored to do work that I love. I love writing my blog. I love witnessing people get out of their own way so they can achieve something more awesome in their lives.
That should be the title of your book, Helping You to Get Out of Your Own Way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are big obstacles. We really are. Yeah. We find and dodge ourselves into the most precarious positions that we have to climb over. So, I think that was the year. It was a year of realizing that wow, you can do work that you love and make meaning and be successful all in one go. So, I want that for everyone.
Do you find that a lot of the people that you end up coaching, spending time with, and so on, are in positions that they, come out of a similar sort of background that you came out of? Wow, I'm 42 and I just realized I've been doing something that I hate for 26 years. Or or would you say the majority of people are doing what they love? Or is there, maybe a shift coming in our culture? I mean, my dad, I don't know that he loved what he did, but he certainly enjoyed it. And he did it for, 40 years, the same thing. He worked with the same company. They were bought out 3 times, probably had the same desk, for many years. And yet I don't see that happening today. Not in the same way, anyway.
No, I mean, I really do think the time of having the same job for 35, 40 years is way past now. I would say in my past and current client base, most of the people that I work with have chosen the work that they're doing now. Mm-hmm. So very few of them are in that stuck, I hate my job,
right.
I want to get out of it position. So I tend to work with individuals who are passionately in the place that they want to be in and are looking at who do I need to be right now
right.
to grow my business, because I can't be the person that I was, in my quote corporate gig, and I can't be the person that is stuck. So what needs to shift in me so that I can move on to the next level of my life and my business? And oftentimes that's around telling on yourself.
Right.
What am I good at? What do I suck at? Where do I need to improve? Where do I need to ask for help? And all of those are often big obstacles because we're used to a different reality. So that's the fun work of digging deep.
I mean, Grace, I've known you long enough, and I think we've had enough conversations to sense that you're a far more positive person than I am. I tend to, see the negative, the melancholy, the cynical side, and yet, I'll call myself a hopeful cynic. So I think all my listeners would know that about me. But do you think that there's I want to kind of follow that line of thinking where we were, that thread of what is common about, all CEOs are human. So what's common about, is there a sense with leaders and CEOs and entrepreneurs of always seeing the opportunity, that they are positive people, that, yes, this is going to be a challenge, but you know what? It's a problem to be solved. It's a rung in the ladder to be climbed, et cetera.
Yeah, I think, I was reading in a book recently, I can't remember which one now, the writer talked about the concept of hope, and that hope is not actually an emotion, it's a mindset. And so if you have a mindset around hope, when something happens, an event happens, your reaction to that event ends up being, oh, that's not possible, or I wonder how that could be possible, and how I can make the best out of this event that just happened upon me. So, I do believe that entrepreneurs and CEOs have a hope mindset, and I want to filter that with great CEOs have a hopeful mindset. Excellent CEOs have a hopeful mindset with a touch of discernment.
Wow.
So, as opposed to outrageously optimistic with abandon, I would say outrageously optimistic and having a really good sense of filter and gut and instinct.
Yeah,
to know
it sounds to me like
forward.
if you're too optimistic, you're just a flake at that point, aren't you?
Yeah, it's like rose-colored glasses and blinders and all that, and I've seen that. I mean, I've experienced that. I've experienced it myself. I had a couple of years where I thought everything was awesome, and there were times when it's like, oh, and I kind of really ignored certain parts of my life. So certainly from experience, myself and I've seen with others, the fully outrageously optimistic, unfiltered way of living is a dangerous one to go to.
Yeah. So, would you say that all? And I don't know why I'm focusing on CEOs, but I mean, let's just talk about leader. Let's talk about board chair. Let's talk about camp counselor. Anybody who's in some kind of a position that has a certain amount, I suppose, of authority or expectation of providing direction for folks and so on, strategy. Do you think all CEOs or all leaders are entrepreneurs? Do you think that that's sort of interchangeable?
Well, it's a good question. I think all CEOs and leaders should be entrepreneurs.
Right.
and I don't think they all are. And I think that's therein lies the struggle and the challenge. A lot of the hired guns, CEO hired guns, are there to do an administrative and management job from a corporate standpoint. So they may be hired for that reason, but the expectation is for a visionary, for a strategic thinker, not as just a strategic planner. So I would say that that's where a lot of the opportunities are for growth. For CEOs who have been hired guns in an organization that want to develop their creativity, their risk-taking with discernment attitude, their ability to inspire and influence. Because my guess is the majority of them are really good process leaders.
Right.
Very good at networking and having sort of State of the Nations addresses, yet much of it is focused on what's happening in an organization rather than what the vision is for the organization.
What's going to happen.
Yeah, and getting people excited and inspired and passionate about being on the same journey. I think a lot of leaders talk about what has happened and don't talk a lot about what will happen.
Right.
And it's a different kind of conversation. So learning and practicing to think in the future space as opposed to the current space or the past space is an important place to work on.
I mean, are you sort of talking about the whole good to great thing here? You know, I remember talking to a friend of mine who's actually the CEO of a fairly large tech company in Montreal. Went to school with him. You know, never in a million years would any of us thought that this is what this guy would turn out to be. He's done very well, very successful, et cetera. And I remember him saying to me with respect to my own, consulting company that I have, So Change, he said, "Oh, David, you got to hire great people. You got to, and I laughed. And I said, yeah, easy for you with a $40 million company. You can afford to hire great people. A little tougher for me over here working in the nonprofit and, the social responsibly, corporately attuned environment. It's a little tougher, I was really trying to remain positive. So is that, though, what you're talking about here? You got your good leaders who maybe have entrepreneurial characteristics, can do the work of the what was and not what's going to be, so then you got your great ones who are visionaries, strategic thinkers, et cetera, risk takers, and so on.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, has sort of been a Bible for in my library and certainly in those of many of my clients. Absolutely. Being on, he talks about being on the right seat of the bus in your organization, know your strengths, hire for your weaknesses, et cetera. Absolutely agree. I also think that the opportunity for many CEOs right now is to their own professional development. They know their organizations, they know their industries. That's kind of a given, Do they know themselves? Do they know their own potential? I think that's where the work lies. And I, as you said earlier, I'm newly affiliated with Peck Canada, which stands for the Executive Committee.
Yeah, and just appointed to the board. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so, in relation to this question, too, Peck is... We've been around for almost 60 years now. We're in 16 countries around the world. We've affected over 70-something thousand lives of business leaders across the globe. And there are 55 chairs in Canada, and I'm their newest chair. So I'm excited and honored to be part of that family. And our work is to help leaders create change within themselves so that they can create change in their communities, in their businesses, and in their home life. So oftentimes we talk about helping visionaries take the blinders off. So, sometimes we are visionary in a very small, funneled way. And what Peck provides through peer-to-peer advisory groups and one-on-one coaching is a way to sort of let go of those blinders and allow the CEO to see
Right.
more of what's possible,
Right.
more of who they are, and be able to sort of step into those areas that may be uncomfortable but necessary for their own growth. So, I'm excited to be part of that, and excited, in answer to your question, to work in that realm of good to great. We're not working with CEOs who've just started companies who are in that huge sort of growth business development stage. We're looking really at working with seasoned entrepreneurs and leaders who have done good and want to do more good. That's that kind of sweet spot that we're working with.
So, I'm going to be a little self-serving here. I want to know, do you think this kind of change, goodness to greatness, that should be as fun. You talked about leaders being, giving and having this apparent attitude around serving. I'm guessing serving others, Imagineers. I mean, you got some wonderful stuff here. Do you think these types of steps forward for individuals, men and women, and young people who are, wanting to head this way, do you think it's incremental? I mean, that's my mission, is to talk about incremental change and how, the splash and ripple effect in international development, how you can't measure that, how, coming alongside a young man or woman in the majority world and building capacity is going to have a huge impact, and yet we don't know where, Do you think that's kind of the work that you're doing with Daily Grace, with your, as board chair now of Tech? I mean, it sounds like it to me. 70,000 leaders, you've been planting seeds, right?
Yeah, and for many years. So yes, absolutely part of the movement, and I totally agree it's incremental. I think about Dan Pink's book, A Whole New Mind. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I don't know it, no.
Oh, it's an awesome book.
Okay?
He talks about our movement from the industrial age to the conscious age, and how this gone are the days where we're just cogs on a wheel, and that we're producing and looking at results, where the production process of it is meaningless. And we are fully in the age now of consciousness, where we are wanting to do work that matters and wanting to have meaning in each step of the way. And I think, as you say, our social economy and our social awareness of what our footprints are, what our impact is, it is the language of now. Mm-hmm. So, nice. Even in the group that I'm building with Tech Canada, my stance and my stake for the group that I'm building are that I only want people to be part of this advisory group if they are up for showing up, leading big, and doing good. And if they're not up for all three of those things, then this is not the hell out.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Excited about that.
It sounds like you're excited about it. We got to wrap up in a couple minutes, but I think, and this was honestly going to be my question, but that's got to be the subtitle of your new book that's coming out in the near future, right?
I've got a few in the making, so we'll see.
That's that is an awesome subtitle. I don't know what the title is, but I've always loved poetry and love the title of a poem that just pulls you in, Anyway, so are you working on something?
I am working, the Daily Grace has really inspired me to write on a continuous basis.
Yeah.
So I do write every day, and I've seen the impact that it's making. So a book is coming. I have written one before many years ago.
Oh, okay, good.
I understand the process and the commitment to it. So I'm looking at carving out some time to write something else, but probably not in the very near future.
Not in the very near future. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, we've almost chatted for a half an hour. We barely scratched the surface, and it's been a delight chatting with you. I hope we can talk again.
Absolutely.
At some
Thanks
point.
for having me on the show.
Yeah, where's your blog? Where can we find it?
It's the dailygrace.ca.
Okay, so you've got a website?
Yep.
dailygrace.ca, blog is there. Please check it out. And once again, Grace, you've proven to me that there is way more going on than meets the eye. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.